Give this young lady a round of applause. Yes. Yes, Simone is amazing, and this is an amazing event. Hats off to Ashley. You did a fantastic job. Mentor. Ladies, you guys look really great. Kind of sexy, right? I know, right? How's everybody doing today? Y'all don't sound like women in the cannabis industry. Y'all don't smoke weed. How y'all doing today? Okay, hello. Okay, hello. All right. So my name is Khadijah Adams. I'm super excited to be here. Really nervous having this microphone, so I'm going to put it down and see if you guys can hear me, if that's okay. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Am I loud enough? Yes. Awesome. So let's start this over. Good afternoon, ladies. One of the reasons I wanted to, first of all, thank you for inviting me to come and speak. So I'm super excited and very humbled to be here. Kara, thank you for, where's Kara? Kara, thank you so much for introducing us. Really excited. One of the things that I wanted to share with you, and one of the goals that I have in coming and speaking, is to really share not just my journey and empower you from what happened during my journey, the failures as well as the successes. Because that's some of the things that we don't talk about as women business owners. We don't like to talk about our failures. We only want to talk about our successes, right? In my story, you're going to hear some of my failures. And for the most part, a lot of my successes. And I'm super excited about that because it's really important for us to understand that investing in cannabis-related companies is not as hard as many people think it is. And sometimes it is necessary. How many of you guys know that we can't go to the bank and say, hey, I'm in the legal marijuana industry, I need a loan? Anybody? I mean, if you guys know of a bank out there, let me know, okay? All right, so my journey in cannabis actually began in 2014, you guys. At the time, I was married. At the time, I owned a chain of computer stores. I'd been an entrepreneur since 1997. I understood brick and mortar. I understood marketing. I understood foot traffic. I understood networking, right? And so having these companies and then listening to the news about Colorado wanting to legalize cannabis for recreational consumption, I said, pump your brakes. And that's exactly what I did. I pumped my brakes. Why? Because I had already been at the beginning of companies at inception. So I had the privilege to really find out and benefit from positioning in those companies early on. So I can only imagine being at the beginning of an entire industry, which is made up of thousands of different companies and an array of different verticals. So let me tell you guys, this was at the end of 2013. Come January 1st, I'm watching the news just like everybody else, okay? And we're looking at Colorado, and we're looking at Tony. She's selling the first recreational cannabis joint, right? I think it was Sean who said, one marijuana, please. And I'm looking at this, and I said, hold up. This changes every single thing. And guess what it did? By March, the beginning of March, I sent out a blast text message to over 200 plus people on my cell phone saying everything must go. How many of you guys are tied to your furniture and your stuff that you spent your money on and this, that, and the other? Well, guess what? Garage sale. 2 weekends in a row, I sold every single thing in my possession outside of my car, my computer, my cell phone, you guys, and my clothes. By March 14th, in the car, leaving Sugar Land, Texas, where I'm from, you guys. I don't know if you guys know Sugar Land, Texas. You know Sugar Land, Texas? Right outside of Houston. It's a suburban city in Houston. In the car, headed to Colorado. I had never been to Colorado before. Hell, I hadn't even seen snow. Except for my damn postcard. You know, I looked like a postcard, and it looked cute. So let me tell you, the car was so packed of clothes. These were clothes. Clothes, right? With my computer on top. All right? And my ex in the passenger seat. All right? And so I'm like this, and I couldn't even look, y'all, I swear to God, if I'd have farted, I'd have killed myself. I'm just being real, right? That's true. Okay? It was just that close. I know that's not too girly, right? I know. But here's the thing. I said, I'm getting there. By hook or by crook, I'm going to make it happen, because all I thought about was creating generational wealth. I didn't even know about the medicinal values until I got there. See? Then I began meeting patients. I began meeting people who had cancer. I began meeting women with no breasts. Men who had lost their families because they had prostate cancer. And they were in such a bad state that their families just couldn't stay. Children who were sent home with their parents to die. I met these people who were out on the city hall steps, in the snow. Veterans who had suffered from PT and still suffering from PTSD. Who had lost their benefits because they tested positive for THC. These are people who fought for us. You understand me? That lost their benefits because of a plant, mind you. And so I met these people. I met politicians. I met people who laid the foundation for the legalization of recreational cannabis and medicinal cannabis. It changed everything for me, you guys. It wasn't about just creating generational wealth anymore. It was about freedom. Freedom of choice. Freedom to say what the hell I'm going to put in my body when it hurts. You understand? It was about really understanding what people went through. It wasn't about getting high. And I'm not going to lie to you. I've been getting high for 38 years. Unapologetically. Okay? And I'm saying to myself, what can happen? What can we do? This can't just be about creating generational wealth, although that, my friends, is very important. Okay? I began doing the research. I did so much research, you guys, that it wasn't funny. I went way back to 400 BC, Genesis 1:12, Genesis 1:29-30, Exodus 30:22, where Moses was ordered to put it in prayer oil. I went back there. I even went back to the first sign of prohibition. Did you know that it was in the Middle East after a war? And the soldiers decided they were going to fire up some hashish. Okay? And I don't think their commander liked it at all, so he prohibited it. Okay? I went way back then, and then I stumbled up on some people called Hearst, DuPont, Mellon, and good old Harry Ansling. And then I found out about this reefer madness stuff. See, because when that was going on, I was just a baby. So I didn't know about that. Found out about all this reefer madness propaganda and everything, which eventually turned into, under the Reagan administration, the war on drugs. Or should I say the war on people of color? That's right. Okay? And then it metastasized into private prisons. And then I've been pissed off. Yeah. And I said this. I'm not going to stop talking, right? I'm going to tell everybody I know, and don't believe me, do your own research. You see, the reason why we believe and the reason why the stigma is the way that it is right now is because we don't go way back and read. If we went way back to read, we'd understand that cannabis was laced in all of our medicines before aspirin ordained. I didn't know. So I began doing all this research, and even during that time, you guys, I still didn't know where I fit in. I still continued to go to the conferences. I still continued to go to the events. I still continued to meet, network, and it was this one time, one event I left, right? And somebody introduced me to, and I fell in love with the idea of investing in marijuana stocks. I said, marijuana stocks? I said, what the hell is that? It's stocks, publicly traded companies. I said, you mean to tell me that there are companies that's traded publicly? They said, oh, yeah. I said, well, I want to know about it. And and I began to read and learn. You know why? Because I didn't see anybody that looked like me in the industry. And then the people who were in the investment sector of the industry, A, didn't look like me, B, didn't want to talk about marijuana stocks. Those were just penny stocks. However, they still worked with private companies, and when they wanted their money back, they took them public. Into what? Marijuana stocks now. Damn. I said, wait a minute. You're against marijuana stocks, but when you want your money, you'll take a private company public. I didn't get that part. I began to do the research, and I found out that there's an array of different companies and different verticals within this industry. It's not just about cultivation. It's not just about dispensary. It's not just about extraction and edibles. There are advertising agencies, marketing agencies, business development companies. There's all kinds of things going on out here. So I began to invest, and my story got out. And when my story got out, I began to be interviewed by all kinds of companies and news and whatever the case may be, right? But investors began calling. Guess what, y'all? Not just investors that wanted to know penny stocks. They wanted me to connect them to viable investment opportunities within the space. And I looked at the time, you guys, because I was spending time on the phone. 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours a day talking to people. Either they wanted me to teach them how to invest in marijuana stocks, or they wanted me to connect them. They weren't interested in marijuana stocks, they wanted private companies. These were the accredited investors, the deeper pockets, right? And then I began to learn about these companies. And that the same way I evaluated these companies, I was evaluating these companies. And I said, wait a minute, let me just get over here for a minute. So from 2014, November is when we started the company. A friend of mine named Betty in Sugar Land, Texas, who, by the way, is a minister, that part. And so we started Marijuana Investment and Private Retreat, also known as MIPR Holdings. A business consulting, guess what? Everybody in the industry is a cannabis consultant, right? The only difference is we actually specialize in investor relations. We connected investors. We had private weekend retreats, you guys, where accredited investors would come for those retreats. Guess why? They didn't want to go to a cannabis conference. They would not be seen in this type of conference or event. They didn't want to go on Facebook and social media and let the whole world know they were interested in investing. So they came to our private retreats, and guess what we did? We interviewed entrepreneurs in small to mid-sized companies, and we had them come and pitch them privately. Okay? And that's what happened. And in 2016, here comes the failures. Y'all better take notes. Here comes the failures. 2016, we're rocking and rolling. I'm in California just, talking. I was at this event in California. Man, had a great time and came home and the cupboard was bare. Yeah, my husband left while I was gone. And I immediately took a shower, got dressed, went to my next meeting. Did y'all hear me say I stopped and I cried, I boohooed and this? No. I took a shower, I got dressed. Did y'all hear me say I cried and I suffered and No, I took a shower and I got dressed and I went to my what? Next meeting. My next meeting. Why? Because life goes on. Don't allow people to stay with you if they don't want to be. Let them go. You understand? Reason, season, or lifetime. Peace in the Middle East. Right? Bye. And guess what? I lost 98 pounds. Woo! And if I'd have known that, he'd have been gone soon. What? Hey, we have to go through the process, right? Not only that, you guys, I went through a tremendous time with my company. I made some dumb, stupid mistakes, right? Most of us can't admit our mistakes, and it took me a long time to say, girl, you messed up. I literally had to get in the mirror, bucket naked, and say, you messed up. Not her, not him, not them, not them. You messed up. Now, what are you going to do to get it back? To get it right? Yes. What are you going to do? See? So I decided I was going to call everybody I hurt and everybody that hurt me. I'm sorry. Some people accepted, some people didn't. Guess what? I still kept it what? Moving. You know why? Because if I would have stuck in it and stayed in it, I would have been depressed and miserable. beat myself up into my mind. Okay? We beat ourselves up more in our minds than we actually do. We can see things in our mind that don't even exist. She's probably thinking this. You don't know what this woman's thinking. Right? And so I have to tell you, I called these people and I said, you know what, I'm so sorry. And some people, I was really genuine. Like, I even cried. I was serious. Because I wanted them to know that I'm human. I'm not perfect. I look good though. I'm not perfect, right? Right? And so I wanted to do that because that's how we move on. The apology is not for them. The apology was for me. See? And I kept moving. I kept pitching down to my 123rd investor. Pitch. I don't want to deal with your company. I'm pitching the whole idea of having a minority-focused business development and management company for people of color and women and veterans and people with disabilities and people in the LGBTQ community. We need to get these people some money. And as a 124th investor, no, okay, no problem. And so, feelings hurt. 125th investor, okay. No, okay, no problem. All right, yeah, guess what, you're going to call me anyway. All right. 126th investor. He said, no. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to leave this alone. I've already prayed about it. I don't know about y'all. I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. When I pray about something, I pray about it and leave it be. You understand? I don't dwell on it anymore. So I prayed about it. I said, somebody going to give. 126 didn't go. 127 didn't go. 128 said, yes, let's go do it. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on your dreams. Number 128 investor said yes. In June 2017, I sold MIPR Holdings, my baby. My baby, I breathed it. I lived it. I lost everything for it. I gave up everything. Y'all, I have 7 grandchildren. I see them when I can. I see them on the internet. I see them in pictures because I'm building something for them so that they won't have to do what I had to do. You understand? So I'm out here. I gave it up. And I said, I'm not going to stop. Even after the girl said, you'll never do anything in the industry. You're delusional. She called me delusional because you know what? I believe in speaking whatever you speak about, you bring about. That's it. That's all. Good or bad, everything you speak about is an affirmation. That's what it is. And she said I couldn't do it. And I said, thank you. And I kept going. The number 129th investor is here today. Actually, he and his wife drove in from San Diego. Then we had a 130th investor. Oh my God. Let me tell you something. When I sold in my MIPR Holdings, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and I said, I can do this. It is possible. I do believe it, and I don't give a damn about what nobody else says about me. It's not my business. But it is my business, right? To make sure I take care of my business. And so I did. In June 2017, C.E. Hutton, the accredited investor I'm speaking about, is a Denver native. He teaches and trains executives in Fortune 50 and 500 companies to this day. And he has come out of the Canna Closet with C.E. Hutton, LLC, in which I am the Vice President and Chief Operations Officer. So please don't let people tell you what you can and cannot do. Please don't let anyone's opinions define you. Please don't judge people based on someone else's conversation. Judge them based on how your experience is with that person, because it may not be the same. Y'all know that everybody's chemistry doesn't jive, right? All right, so your experience may not be my experience with this young lady. You may not like her. I may love her. I love her. Everybody. But you understand what I'm saying? But you get it, right? Yes. So yes, listen to what they have to say because you want to be prepared, right? Listen, but do not judge. Because that one person that you judge could have been the person that wrote your check for your business, could have been the person that introduced you to the person who wrote your check. Sometimes it's not about the entrepreneur, y'all. It's about who does the entrepreneur know? You understand? And remember this in marketing, and all marketing reps and marketing agents, sales reps, they can tell you one person is not one person in this industry. It's like 11, 12, and if you do something bad, it's like 100, 200. Okay? So be mindful of that, you guys. When we formed CE Hutton, you guys, I have to say this. We had our heads down from June. We didn't come up and say, hey, we just started a new company. No, my head was down. People were calling me saying, hey, can you come speak? Nope, sorry. Sometimes I wasn't even answering the phone. I went so undercover because sometimes you have to remove yourself in order to save yourself. When you are in your alone time or your winter season and you think, oh, woe is me, that is when you go deep into personal development. See? That's when you learn what you need to learn. And that's what I did. I put my head down. My team put their head down. We began building a phenomenal team. One of our team members is here. In fact, she's the treasurer of our company. She's here. She's going to share some things with you guys. But let me tell you something. We put our heads down. And in February, on February 1st, in observation of Black History Month, we launched our website, cehutton.com. Get this, February 28th, we officially launched in front of investors in the Center Club in Tampa. Very successful event. We had a great time. But guess what? We didn't even get into the office until March 5th. We closed our first client March 30th. We closed our first investor, the 130th investor, on April 10th. And we have 5 more in the pipeline. Tell me, whatever you speak about, you think about, everything. Don't let other people define you, guys, because if I had done that, I wouldn't be standing right here. If I had cowered down, if I had backed away because I made some mistakes, I'm human. It's my born right. I didn't ask to come here. Did y'all ask to come here? It's our born right to make a mistake. The key is learning from mistake. The key is going back to the person you hurt or the person that hurt you. Sometimes you have to be the bigger person, right? And apologize. I'm sorry if I hurt you. I'm sorry that I hurt you. We're both women. I want to collaborate. I don't want to compete with you. Girls compete, women empower. Yes. Say that. Yes. Girls compete, women empower. Girls compete, women empower. Girls compete, women empower. You just have to decide, who are you? Who do you want to be? There's a reason they make little small seats in elementary school. They don't want us there when we grow up, right? They only want it for the little ones. Okay? There's a reason. And you guys, since this time, we've invested in the GreenStreet Academy. The GreenStreet Academy is an online academy that teaches novice investors, novice people, people who want to learn about marijuana stocks from the comfort of their own home. So we invested in that. We just recently invested in the Block Cash Partner Group that manages a portfolio of digital and blockchain technologies. You know, one of the reasons I partnered with CE Hutton, not just because he could write a check, because I had turned down 2 investors who wanted to write a check. All money is not good money. Say that. All money is not good money. If they're going to dangle a carrot in front of you, leave these people alone. Tell them to keep your money, okay? There's enough out here. There's other investors out here. You'll get some no's. Write down all your no's, y'all. You know why? It took me 128 times to get to that yes. Do you hear me? Yes. So now I know when I start asking again, I got to go through 127 no's. No problem. Let me go get through the no's real quick because I need a yes. Okay? Now, our core values, one of the reasons I partnered with him is because of his core values, and I've adopted those core values. Faith, integrity, and trust. Those acronyms fit. Every company, every entrepreneur, every small business that we associate ourselves with, that we help, must fit that legacy. We're not a religious organization, but we do have faith that we can come together as minority communities and as communities that support minority communities. We can come together, pool our funds together. We can do so with integrity, and we damn sure can do it with trust. Unlike what people think in this industry. It can be done. It will be done. It's being done right now. I guess you guys can hear my passion. Because I have to tell you, I am extremely passionate. Is this on my 30 minutes? Thank you. Now that I've told you a little bit about my story, about the company, I must share with you a legal disclaimer. We're going to go over the basics of investing. Legal disclaimer. I have to read this, you guys. CE Hutton is a minority-focused business development and management company. Our programs are designed for educational purposes only and are not a recommendation or endorsement of any particular investment or investment strategy. Past presence does not indicate or guarantee future success. Returns will vary and all investments involve risk, including loss of principal. Neither CE Hutton nor any of its principals, officers, employees, representatives, agents, or independent contractors is in such capacities licensed financial advisors, registered investment advisors, or registered broker dealers or attorneys, nor do we play one on TV or the internet. Dang, right? All right, so I'm going to breeze through here because I was told that I have 5 minutes, and I know y'all can talk for real. All right, so the basics of investing, that's what we're going to talk about. How investors think and getting your company investment ready. The first thing you want to do, you're talking about investing in a company, find out about the company. Make sure it's a legitimate company. Make sure it's real. And it's not just a P.O. box that goes to a UPS store, right? That they have real people in there, okay? Go visit the company if it's in your city and state. Go see them. Go see how they operate. See what their sales and marketing is about. Who's on their team? Go and find out if they're a real company and do a proper valuation. Keep in mind, if it is a startup, guess what? Those are not real numbers. Unless they went out there and they've proven them up. Kind of like what Ashley says. And I'm with her on that. When you have an idea, there's no such thing as, I'm doing it when I get ready. Do it. You'll learn and grow along the way. Okay? Do a proper valuation of your company. Okay? Of the company. If you don't know how to do that, if you go to the GreenStreet.com, theGreenStreetAcademy.com, the GreenStreetAcademy.com has a free brochure. It gives you the steps that you'll take for that. Have an investment plan. Not very many people know that you need an investment plan or that they need an investment plan. How much do you want to spend? How much can you afford to what? Lose. Without being like, oh my God, I can't pay my rent. No. How much can you afford to comfortably lose? Okay? Have a plan, you guys. What kind of companies do you want to invest in? If you're in technology, wouldn't it make sense to kind of look at technology companies? If you're in real estate, that's something you know, right? Warren Buffett said, do not invest in a company that you know nothing about, but if you do, you damn well better learn quickly, okay? All right? Don't be an island. When you've researched the company, you found this company to be successful, you found the team, right, to be successful, don't just sit there and say, let me just wait and see what they're going to do. They're going to leave you. Do something. Don't be an island. Understanding how investors think. No pain, no gain. Risk tolerance. Everybody's risk tolerance is not the same. You guys, I was an entrepreneur since 1997. Had my first company for 10 and a half years. Lost it in real estate. I took that company nationwide. Okay, saw a 7-figure income go from 7 figures to only $6,000 in the bank. So I took my last $5,400 and started another company. Understand your risk tolerance. Turned it into 123 months. Flipped it. Opened up another store. Did the same thing. Another store. Did the same thing. That's the company I sold before I came to Colorado. No pain, no gain. Understand that. Yes, higher risk, higher rewards. Just be prepared. Understand how we think. We are human. Okay? Investors do invest emotionally, except for the ones like Warren Buffett. He's not an emotional investor at all. He makes a decision. It's what it is. That's it. He doesn't think about it. Okay? Fear of regret. Most investors have fear of regret, especially if the company is not what it appeared to be, especially if the team doesn't perform like they wanted to perform. Some investors have a fear of regret once they make that decision. Don't be overconfident in your decision. Do your research. If you're not a reader, sorry, you gotta be. Okay? That's what it is. You need to know as much information as possible. Okay? Sorry, I think I missed one. Prepare for risk, stress-free. When I make an investment, I leave it. Oh, unless, of course, I'm swing trading. Totally different animal. But when I make an investment, I leave it. Getting your company investment ready. I hope you guys have pen and paper, but we're going to make sure we get this to you. Almost done? Am I good? Okay. Know your competitive edge. What does that mean? That means know your competitors and know what makes you stand out more so than them. And why should an investor look at you versus them? What makes your company unique? You need to know that. You need to know it on GP. You may meet me, Ashley, or someone else in an elevator, and we ask you, okay, give me your elevator pitch. You got 2 minutes, brother, sister, sorry. Right? Good. So, know your marketplace. Who's your target market? Know them. Know what they buy, know what they like. Know if your product even will work in the market. Know your competitors. You've got to know your competitors. Please do not ever tell an investor that you have no competitors, even if you have no competitors. Because if we go out and we find that you have a competitor, boom, we completely do not look at any more of your stuff because you haven't even done your research. I'd be damned if I do it for you, right? Okay? Qualified investors for you. Not every investor is for you. Say that. Not every investor is for me. You know why? Because some investors want to give you money, but then they want to see a return on their investment. Someone will hound you and hag you. Do you really want that? Okay? Find an investor. If you're looking to build a team, get an investor who's looking to come on board with you to help you grow. Building a management team. Get qualified people. Make sure they have references. Check their references. Check their criminal background. Check all of that before you bring them in. And then when you do bring them in, let them do what they do. And make sure they're in line with your mission, with your goals, with your vision of your company. Okay? Exit strategy. Please have one. I want to know how you're going to get out of the company. How are you going to leave the company? Are you going to sell your shares to somebody I don't like or a company I don't like? Maybe I don't want to invest in you. Right? But have an exit plan to know what that is. Forecast and assumptions. You need them. Get a financial advisor. Get someone who can help you. Here's what's interesting. Before seeking capital, first things first, ladies. First things first. At this time, I want to introduce a young lady who I've had the pleasure to meet and come to know. She has been an inspiration to me and to many women. She's also a member of the National Association of Women Business Owners. She's the founder and CEO of Complete Controller, which is a nationwide virtual accounting and bookkeeping service that has been in business for 12 years, you guys. Let me tell you something. This woman is phenomenal, and she is even more phenomenal with women and upbuilding women. She is also on our board of managers as the treasurer of C Hutton. Ladies and gentlemen, or ladies, and a few gentlemen, please help me welcome Jennifer Brazier.
Amazing. I do not have a loud voice like Khadijah, so I'm going to use a microphone. I'm Jennifer Brazier. I am the CEO and founder of Complete Controller. Complete Controller is an outsourced bookkeeping company. We focus completely on bookkeeping, and we've worked in many, many industries over the last 12 years, but just about 4.5 years ago, we broke into the cannabis industry. Almost by accident, we had a person who wanted to invest in a cannabis company, a venture, and he wanted to put $1 million in, and he said he would only do it if we did the books, because we were already doing the books for his law firm and for his wife's mortgage company, and it just made sense. So of course we knew nothing about cannabis bookkeeping, and who did, right? I mean, it's just all a mystery. And everything is changing every day, so if somebody tells you that they know, then they're not going to know tomorrow anyway. So definitely make sure that you're staying on the cutting edge. So we took him up on his offer, and we decided to do the bookkeeping for this venture. It was actually 3 different genres, so we really got the experience with working in the idea of cultivation and operations in that area, and then also in dispensary, and then of course in packaging and distribution, and in property management, and some of the other kind of constructs that they had around their entity. And that's why it's so important to work with a tax attorney. Definitely be working with a CPA right at the very beginning of starting the venture, or if you're here in California and you're working under the old law, and you're going to get into compliance, then really bringing that team in is of paramount importance, because you don't know what you don't know, and you're going to fall into one of those pitfalls that will then find you exposing yourself to risk that you don't need to have. And when you expose yourself to risk, yeah, you might be able to tolerate it, and you might be able to correct it, and you're probably a go-getter, and it'll happen eventually. But what happens is you're building your portfolio and your history. So when you go to get investment money, they're going to look at your past performance as an indicator of future performance, because that's all they have to look at. And they're not just going to dish you out a big fat check if you haven't been capable of keeping yourself in compliance and limiting risk. So every time you've exposed yourself then has to be explained. You have to understand what that exposure was, how you buckled it down, how it's different now, and whether or not it might come back to bite you later. Because quite frankly, if I'm going to give you a bunch of money, I don't then want all that money to go away because you're getting sued for something you did 5 years ago before I ever came along. So really looking into making sure that you have that team of experts around you right up front, super, super important. One of the things, being a woman in business and being a CEO and dealing with a lot of the male energy over the years, and I have a lot of men that are advisors of mine and friends of mine that I highly respect, that do a great job with their companies. I'm definitely not deprecating when it comes to, men. They're great. But my company, it turns out, just organically, we have over 50 accountants across the nation, and we have 5 men working for us. And I think it's typically like the reason the decision has been made in that direction time and time again is that we're very process driven, we're very efficient, we're very much check the box, right? A, B, C. And the men that we've hired in the past for various positions, they like to kind of do that big picture thing, or maybe analyze it too deeply, or be of greater value than what we need them for, which is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So I want you to check the box, and you're telling me about some other venture you want to do over here, and I really don't give a shit. I want you to check the box, So it's just worked to have women on our team. They tend to really thrive in our particular industry. The way that Complete Controller is put together, when I started the business, had 3 teenage daughters. One of them is blind and uses a guide dog and reads and writes Braille, and so I had to be her advocate. And then I had a younger one, and then I had an older one that was just going to college, and she was going to be the first applying for a major college right out of high school person in our family. So it was a really big deal, and I was super overwhelmed, and I'm driving to places, doing consulting and temporary CFO work, and my time is my inventory, and I was over it. I want you to cut me a check, and I want to get the work done, and I want you to stop questioning me on how I'm doing it, and I want to do it the way that I know is best and not have to live within your constructs, and have you value me based on whether I'm performing according to your rules. And so I just went for it, and I decided to create a company that is entirely virtual. We do have offices where we can meet clients and drop off paperwork, but there's no one working at those offices. Our accountants all work out of their home offices. They do a fabulous job. They raise their kids. Our COO has an autistic son. She's a CPA in Denver. She's the one that got us into this, by the way. When I came to her with this idea, she's like, oh yeah, we totally have to do this. I'm like, oh, you are crazy. But it's turned out that the cannabis market is one of the fastest growing segments of our client base, and we're so glad to be serving you. So one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about CE Hutton is because we're empowering those people that need it the very most. And this is going to be an industry with all of the different components and all of that kind of process-driven stuff, that this is going to be perfect for women, right? I mean, we need it. We see the miracle. We know what this is going to look like on the other end. One of my biggest pieces of advice to you is one of the things that Khadijah covered very quickly in her points: exit strategy. When you start your business, it's very important to know where you intend for it to go. And that might change, and that's okay, but it's important for you to know, because if you don't know, then you don't have any way to gauge each decision as you make it. So we know how important goal setting is, right? You make that goal, and then every single decision you make all throughout the day, from what you're gonna eat in the morning to what job you're gonna take, is based on, am I getting closer to that goal or not? That exit strategy is really going to push you when you need it most. So put that down on paper, and you can definitely look more into us at cehutton.com. It is such a privilege to be part of this team, and if you want to talk more about the boring constructs of accounting, then I'll be around. Thanks a bunch.
You all were just incredible. So let's give them a round of applause again. Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then I'm going to give it to the audience. So Elizabeth, I'm going to talk to you since you're talking about messaging. What message do you think the cannabis industry should be communicating to promote federal legalization? You want to use mine?
Oh, I have this one too.
Oh, okay.
This one's working. I think that, when you're talking to government, you need to look at government's objectives. So I think again and again, hammering home the fact that the federal government's leaving a lot of money on the table, and they're allowing the black market to thrive by not providing banking. And that goes to fund everything from gun trafficking to human trafficking to very, very serious issues with opioids and heroin, and so we need to speak their language. There's not one message, but I would say all the messaging needs to orient towards their priorities.
So Khadijah, I need to have you on speed dial. That's the first thing, because you are just so incredible, and what a powerful statement. So Marijuana Business Daily says just 10% of executive positions at cannabis investment firms are held by women. How do we recalibrate that number?
Thank you. Well, I mean, if those are real numbers, the only way that we can recalibrate is that we should re-engage. You know, as women, we have a tendency of looking out for everybody else but ourselves. And it's very important for us to understand that we cannot take care of or help other people until we have helped ourselves, which is much like the air flight attendant. She says that the oxygen mask will come down, put it on yourself first, and then help your neighbor. And so since the only way we can bring those numbers up is if we come together and begin to collaborate as women instead of competing as women. And we have to do that. And one thing that wasn't mentioned was the fact that women sometimes downplay other women. Stop it already. Recalibrate. Let's get these numbers up.
So Ashley, you're gonna feel my pain on this one. In my practice, I am always stressing compliance, and people just don't get it. I mean, I don't know if they don't want to get it, I don't know what the scoop is. But if you can explain, why is compliance so important in the cannabis industry?
There's a lot of answers to that question, I think. I mean, you can approach that from, you know, from a financial perspective. You're looking at license loss, you're looking at financial penalties if you're not compliant. But I think, especially if you're in this space because you care about this as a wellness product and as a medicine, it's your responsibility, if you're sitting at this table, to make sure that you're producing things that are safe for consumers and patients, and that you're creating products in repeatable, sustainable ways. And to do that, you need to be, you know, developing procedures in alignment with the law. The laws were designed for a reason. Granted, you know, they're readdressed sometimes. We're seeing that in California. I think there's components of this that we're looking at again as a state to try and make sure that it works for the small businesses that are involved. But, you know, compliance is the thing that will propel you forward and protect the asset that you've worked really hard to create. And I think with a lot of the companies that we work with, it's, if they don't share my commitment to compliance, they're not the clients that we want to keep at this point, because that's where the industry's going. It's incredibly important, and yeah, there's no wiggle room there. If you're going to be in cannabis, you need to be compliant, period.
So this goes to everybody on the panel. What are the two biggest mistakes you see young entrepreneurs make?
Oh boy. I think, you know, especially through the process of writing this book, I've been able to connect with women all over the country, and I think one of the mistakes is, you said it, trying to get this plan and this idea that you might have to be perfect before you start taking action. And I'm a big doer. Just go do it. Go, you know, you want to create a product, go out there in the world and talk to the dispensaries, talk to the purchasing managers, find out if this thing that you think you've got, this idea that you have, if there's merit, if it will work. I don't say that to discourage you, but this is moving fast, and I would hate to see someone in this, you know, moving down a path that could be a dead end when, you know, that brilliant mind of theirs could have been applied to something else. So, you know, go out there, do it, do your homework, and then go back to the drawing board and be willing to make those changes on a go forward as you need to.
I would say not understanding that engagement has to go beyond the cannabis community, political engagement, you know, engagement in the basic civics of wherever you have your business. That really matters. You know, in California, it matters because from a regulatory point of view, you have to have a local license and a state license. But having a local license is more than just convincing, you know, 3 people who make a decision that you should get the license. It's, you have to be in that municipality. You have to be there. You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be engaged. And, you know, the impact of you within that community doesn't stop at your front door. So really understanding, you know, it's about building relationships in the cannabis community, but really looking past your own nose and this community itself to see who else is in the mix.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I'd like to piggyback off of both these ladies because they're absolutely right. You know, it's one thing to have a business plan. You do have to have a crystal clear vision of where you're wanting to go. Excuse me. And sometimes, I don't know if you guys ever use a GPS, sometimes it redirects you, right?
and when you don't want it to, but it does, right? And sometimes in business, you will be redirected because you will try things that will work, you will try things that won't work. Be willing to tweak that business plan, but make sure that you have a plan, okay? Because even a pilot, when he leaves, if he doesn't have direction, he will not get you there. He'll get you somewhere though, okay? And so you may wanna take a look at that. Be willing to adjust your plan. Also too, before you choose people to be on your team, make sure, one, that they are loyal, that they are experts in their particular field that you need them to work in for you, okay? Make sure that they have references. Check them twice. And do not partner with anyone that you would not leave your house keys with. Okay? That's really important. So one of the major things, the major pitfalls that I see entrepreneurs fall in is that we, as women, we want everybody to come up. Everybody's not meant to come up with you on your journey. Sometimes you do have to leave them and then keep it moving, right?
You know I live by that philosophy. Always keep it moving. Okay, so this question is for you, Khadijah. Unfortunately, we see less than 20% of the marketplace being held by minorities. We see social equity programs, incubation programs. Realistically, how do we get more people of color in this industry?
Re-education. And I say re-education because we have been educated with lies for 80 years, period. So we must re-educate with the truth. We must start, and I know you probably haven't heard this before, but we must start with our religious leaders. That is the only conversation in the cannabis industry we have not had. That is the only conversation that we have not had in the federal government. Even the president, before he presses the button, has a conversation with his religious leader, his religious advisor. So why not have the conversation with our religious leaders about the truth about cannabis that can be found in their own texts, and have them re-educate their communities and our communities, because that's really important. Another thing that's important for minorities especially is for us to make sure that we understand that we can, C-A-N, can y'all say can? Can. We can do business together. It is a myth that we can't. That is a myth. Get rid of it, because we're doing it right now.
So I don't want to hog up the time. Ladies, man, a couple of you. Okay, Kara.
Elizabeth, I want to know when you're running for office.
Oh, you're so kind. I want to run you for governor. I mean, I'm never running for office because I really love having a private life, having a very private life. My own private life is very, very important to me. I will say this, though. I'm going to be getting much, much more involved in the upcoming primaries and the general, because here's the thing. After we get the licenses and we have the money, the way we exercise the power is to get people elected who hold our campaign platform, you know, very precious in their hands. So that's the plan. But make no mistake about it, it's really like we really have to get the money first. That's politics too. You know, ideology is just one tiny part of it. The rest is about actually getting people into those offices that are going to pick up the phone when you call, that are going to be thoughtful about your agenda. So I'm not running, but I will back up the person who is running with the firepower.
Thank you. Stephanie.
How can we still encourage female CEOs and entrepreneurs to start until we figure out this banking situation?
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to stand up and say that again.
Okay. And then maybe just anyone has a question, I'll come up in my head.
How can we encourage female CEOs and entrepreneurs until we figure out the banking system for all of them?
That's a really good question. You know, most people won't start a business because they think the money is the problem. Here's the truth, the money is never the problem. The lack of an idea to generate the money is the problem. And then sometimes we don't look in our own backyards, you guys. People love us, like our family members, even the ones who say they don't, they do, right? And so ask them for money. You know, I had a garage sale, y'all, 2 weekends in a row. I didn't care about those things, and guess what? Everyone who gave me stuff, I sold and said thank you. You just funded my business, right? So be willing to do that. Don't worry about the banking system. That's gonna come around at some point. Right now, have your plan, have a crystal clear vision, because everything you're looking for is looking for you. That's number one. Number two, create a plan to generate the capital.
I totally have that. I just can't receive money. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what if there are other people in my position that do have a good product, do have a good plan, do have anything someone would want? How do I encourage someone else to do this if I can't receive money from someone? Like, because even if I do it with a family member that gives me 50 grand, they can't give it to me in cash, and then I just put it in the safe in my room. So that's kind of like, I want to encourage.
Stephanie, you're not supposed to say it's in your room. People are going to be following me, especially.
Is there anybody that she can talk to that works in banking and finance that could raise their hand that she can meet at the networking event? This is a good answer.
There are companies out there, I think some trade shows that, cannabis trade shows that do actually like have their own banking systems where you can purchase and sell and do it, extract it, and they put it in your customers and pay them. So there are about 3 I know of that have that, but
Yeah.
There's also alternative funding companies as well. So if you check the back table, there's some flyers back there, and that company is actually listed. You can actually go to cehutton.com and apply right there online. I know that there's a lot of companies that are alternative lending institutions. This particular company works with startups, and they have some requirements, of course, but you know, every industry at the beginning has its ups and downs, right? You got to start somewhere. And I think a line of credit might be suitable. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor, but you know, it might be something that you could think about, or even a loan.
So in California, we keep hearing we're going to get the bank in a couple of years. So we really need to keep advocating for that, definitely. Oh, thank you, Simone. Okay, more?
So I'm still processing what I learned this morning, because it's, as an elected official, it's very contrary to what I've been practicing and doing. I found that no matter how good an idea is, if it comes to me, that's enough of a reason for certain men to oppose the idea. I found that I have to care more about getting things done than taking credit. And one of my practices is making usually men think it's their idea. When I have to want to make a point, I ask questions. And I have the feeling that, there's been a couple of times when I've made very strong points, and I think people know they can't mess with me. But also I feel at times they think, oh shit, there goes that crazy old Mexican lady again.
So I'm going to interject one question here. I wanted to make sure, Ashley, you kind of talked a little bit about CBD. This is the grayest of gray areas. So it changes all the time. Everybody thinks they could, mail it from here to Siberia. Just give me your take of where CBD is now.
Yikes. All right, well, I'll preface this by saying, we're learning a lot about this. It is very gray. So I have some context I can share that might help shape, your thinking surrounding CBD, but I don't have all the answers because I don't think anyone has all the answers at this point. When we were speaking earlier, a client of ours, as an example, they have 1,500 acres of hemp farm in Colorado. It's certified organic, which is obviously under the USDA, so that's interesting that we haven't seen a lot of that. They are protected by the 2014 Farm Bill, so they're able to cultivate hemp or agricultural hemp in the US. Where it gets gray is what you can do with that hemp or any byproduct of hemp after you've made it, after you've manufactured it. I'm sure a lot of you have seen CBD products at Whole Foods, on Amazon, at different retailers. The vast majority of those products, especially the ones that are sold on various e-commerce sites, the CBD contained within those products, if there is even CBD in them, because there have been some groups that have done independent testing of a lot of these products, and there's trace levels of CBD in the first place. But if there is CBD, the vast majority of it is coming in from other countries, China being probably the worst culprit. And so, like anything, when you're whatever you're eating, whatever you're drinking, whatever you're taking in terms of cannabis, you're putting something into your body. It's really important that you understand where that product is coming from and that you do your homework. CBD is not created equally, nor are those products, nor are THC products in this space. So definitely do your research there. But my understanding as of now is that you're certainly not, for the group we have in Colorado as an example, they are they're creating CBD distillate, they're selling those products in the Colorado market. The second they try to sell those products over state lines, they run into a lot of problems, and that's where the legal side of this becomes very gray. So if you are producing CBD-based products in the state of California, not a lawyer, definitely consult with your attorney, but my understanding is that that product needs to stay within the state itself. And if you're seeing products being moved around beyond that, don't necessarily just follow suit, because I'm not sure that that's correct or permitted at this stage. But if there's anyone here that is very well versed in CBD law, feel free to weigh in.
Hi, I'm Jody Weiss. Thank you. Elizabeth, I have a question for you. This is an incredibly exciting time for we women to really respond to the Time's Up and Me Too movement and invite, I think, in a really smart, tender way, our whole industry to come around this idea of gender equality. And I wonder if you were thinking about a PR campaign. I wonder if we couldn't create here sort of a round table on this and invite great men who love women, who are looking at gender parity and what that looks like in their own companies, and really get it out in the press in a more responsible way, because there are great guys who are trying to do the right thing as well. So I wondered what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I think that what we've seen with Me Too and other issues, Black Lives Matter, like you can sort of pick your hashtag, is that people have to be made uncomfortable first. I mean, as much as I would love to say that, even the men that I work with, people I'm closest to in my own life, their appreciation for the struggle is not real, because they are not having it. And so I think that we have to probably start from a place of making operators feel uncomfortable and making regulators feel uncomfortable, and then pivot to a solution. I sat in a lot of offices of elected officials, and if people are making your life uncomfortable, the next thing you would like to hear from them is the proposed solution. And so I think that there's a bit of naming and shaming that has to happen. I don't want to sit through another conversation in my life where I hear about the poor, dude operator, who had to leave LA and go to Oakland to continue his empire. I'm sorry, okay, you did it. You were able to move, you were able to pack up everything and go. A lot of people don't have that option. A lot of women I know who are super innovative in this space are just disappearing out of it, They're like, it's too much. So, we have to make people uncomfortable first. I think that again, we shouldn't try to do everything at once, right? We have to get licenses. We have to prioritize women of color to get those licenses, but we then have to prioritize women writ large to have those licenses. That's what I'm saying. It's this idea that we keep getting told again and again by men that it's either social equity or it's feminism. It's a false choice. And so we can carry both of those, all of that water together. We can. I've seen it done many times. And again, cannot let perfect be the enemy of good. So simple platform, simple PR campaign, we need some data, and then we start talking about it, and then nobody is allowed to show up and whine and complain because they didn't get their license until women are part of that picture. That's it. End of story.
I hear a lot about needing licenses. We have what we always call a Wild West out here. So if I hear you guys say that we're supposed to just do it and make it happen and follow our passions, if some of us want to be able to operate in this cannabis space and there aren't licenses or regs defined, what advice do we talk about and look at when we're trying to be compliant?
I mean, I'll pass this off, but the single most important piece of advice I can say is that we have to get Type S licenses across the state of California. I think for women, that is the first way in, because we can house smaller businesses under other licenses legally. So I would say, just from a political agenda point of view, I think that's my advice about the next step, if we just want to be real practical, real quick. But I would,
I think that, as well as doing a cooperative model for the grows up north, and then figuring out the distribution, and then partnering up with an investor, and then making sure that we secure retail outlets and lobbying, hopefully, Los Angeles for social equity to really have women involved, something like Oakland. That's it.
I don't. I mean, what this basically needs is one of the big data companies that are involved with this already to add this question into the data they're collecting from retailers, and so we can actually start analyzing it. And I think that would be a very powerful way to go about it, because if we could... That's a great question, right?
It's 27% nationwide, California. It was... I was asking if the 27% was California specific, because I don't know the answer to that either. I think that's a fantastic question and solution, and I'm also a big data person, so the numbers don't lie often. The reporting is good in the first place. I think from what I've seen looking around the country, certain markets are more accessible to minorities and to women because the capital requirements needed during the licensing process are much lower. So when you looked at, I don't remember the exact numbers because it's too many states, but Ohio, as an example, was somewhere, I want to say it started at 1.5 million that you needed in escrow to apply. I think it was down to 750,000 or something by the time that the application's open. But just think about that. I couldn't do that. And I'm good at getting licenses. Couldn't win a license in Ohio because I didn't have that, capital requirement. So when you look at different states, Maryland went through this. There's lawsuits happening all over the country. There's a live one right now in Florida for the Black Farmers Association that should have been granted a license way before now. And you can see oftentimes in the legislation, whether that's at the city, county, or state level, how this might pan out. And I think one of the first indicators is what that capital requirement looks like. In California, look at the licensing costs, look at the tax rates for that city. Those are good ways to kind of see what that area is doing to open the doors or not. And the other thing I want to say with regard to that, I've worked with people who are developing the ordinances as well and determining what these programs look like. And in a new state, Pennsylvania is doing a lot right now. They're looking at other places and trying to figure out what worked and what didn't work. Not everyone putting these programs together is trying to box us out. it happens sometimes. Sometimes it happens very intentionally, and other times I don't think that's the case. But going back to engagement and participation, if you're in these meetings, if you want to participate in Culver City and West Hollywood, you better be at every single meeting, and not just during the licensing process. You need to be there when they're drafting the ordinance, and you need to voice this early on. If these aren't, most of the time, these aren't surprises. The writing was kind of on the wall way before time of application, and so I can, I've had a lot of clients be very frustrated by the outcomes and frustrated by those meetings, but do keep in mind that there are people involved in this that don't realize the implications of what they just wrote in that ordinance, and with the right level of education, the right level of engagement, we can absolutely change the paradigm at the earliest position versus waiting until you're in a position where you can't apply or you need to go find an enormous amount of capital to participate. There's a way to do this a lot earlier than I think we are right now.
And that's so true, and thank you for that, because the very same question is something that we have a team of analysts that are putting together a report called the Minority Report that includes women in the cannabis and hemp space. And that report is going to be very necessary, primarily because it's going to identify minority-owned companies within the space, whether they're women-owned, veteran-owned, owned by people with disabilities or with disabilities, or people in the LGBTQ community. And the reason for this is because we don't have those numbers. We really don't have the data. And even though Marijuana Business Daily reports that 20% of the industry is owned by minorities, they failed to mention that about 10% of the 20% haven't even gotten started yet. They just completed a survey. So that's really important for us to really understand that the numbers have to be out there. So if you receive a survey, fill it out, complete it, so that we can gather this data and just remember where we are in time with this industry. We're gonna have to continue to gather data and collect that data in order to effectively really answer those questions, because some people in the industry, I've met women in the industry, didn't even know they were in the industry. They never go to any events, they don't make themselves known. I've met them, and they're still in business right now in Colorado.
Well, first I just wanted to say thank you. You guys all had beautiful and amazing and illuminating presentations, and I'm really happy to be here. My question is really, I am a woman-owned business and soon to be LA city applicant for a license. As we kind of raise funds, we did initial friends and family, and as we start to move into raising institutional money, I'm wondering, are there any organizations or resources that you guys suggest that are kind of dominated by women investors?
That's a really good question. And I don't want to sound like I'm just promoting my company, but at the same time, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're looking at women-owned companies, and it's not just me anymore, right? I sold my company, and so now I'm with this company. It's 15 of us, and then we have investors that we just look at different opportunities, especially opportunities that are minority-owned, and we want to see what those are, right? So that we'll know. Is it worth funding? Is it something that we can fund? Do you have all of your ducks in a row to get it funded? I think there's a lot of alternatives out there. We just have to look for them. And you started first. Investors like to know you started with friends and family. If you have the what is the word? I don't want to say that word. The confidence. She helped me. Thank you. You have the confidence to go to friends and family and raise funds, then hey, I'm looking at what you're doing. I want to see what you're doing. Because some people don't have the confidence to go to friends and family and ask them for money, so why are you coming to me? Oh, I don't want to lose their money. Well, why the hell you want to lose my money? I mean, right? But when you saying that you went to friends and family, now it's time to go to the next level. Okay, we want to see that now, because you did that. Which means that, A, it's showing me that you're a worker, you'll go get it, right? And you'll get that money, girl, right? So when I invest or my partners decide to invest, right? We know you're gonna get the money, right? So share your passion, you guys, because investors don't just invest in just the bottom line. We invest in people. Facts tell, stories tell.
Hi, thank you. I have a question. So I wanted to, ask your opinion. Do you think that as women here, we should support Senator Harris and Senator Corey in their bill that's in front of Congress right now? She did, just about a couple weeks ago. She just officially signed on.
So Senator Harris did just come on board, and I actually worked with her at a time before legalization happened in the state of California, and I would not feel comfortable sharing the intricacies of those conversations. I will say this, that when you are a woman and a woman of color in a role that has never been done by either one of those things before, you are going to be more conservative in public by nature for survival. Okay, so just because somebody hasn't taken a public position and put out a press release does not mean that the support isn't there, and that's evidenced, I think, by the really extraordinary work that she has done on criminal justice reform, which is where a lot of Democrats tend to go when they're not quite ready to be in the legalization camp, right? So there's that. I would need to review the bill. I have been you have to understand, I went from doing work, I was looking at the entire state of California, to one where like Ariel and I are like reviewing like a paragraph out of the LA regs, for like 3 hours. So I would need to look closely at the bill, but I would say this, in general, we should be supportive of Democrats and elected officials who support our industry, and we should reject people who don't. That's just kind of it. We should insist on our leaders supporting the industry, understanding it, engaging with it. I've done a lot of work with the gubernatorial campaigns that are coming up for this round. We're really lucky. We have a bunch of pro-cannabis candidates. We have our choice, okay? So that should be the fact in lots of elections, not just the statewide ones. So read the bill.
It's the Marijuana Reformation Act. Senator Corey put it out over a year ago. Yeah. It's a law, it's very complicated, but essentially it decriminalizes the cannabis. And I guess that's my real question, is do you think that decriminalizing it is the appropriate way to go at this point? I guess that was my big question. Because then that would determine whether we should support it.
Decriminalize versus legalize. I'm not an attorney, I would need to refer you to my attorneys. I would say in general, I would trust those two people to carry water that's going to support this industry and support minorities in this industry.
Thank you.
When will politicians stop calling it marijuana?
Thank you. That was awesome.
Really?
Well, that's part of communication. That's how we have to discuss it consistently in the way we want it described. Listen, I'm telling you, when you go into meetings with elected officials, you need to give them their talking points for what they say after you leave the room. And that's just real, that's part of it. You're like, this is offensive. Here's why. Please stop saying it.
And may I just say too that, again, it has to do with brainwashing, generational brainwashing. It's not gonna happen overnight. So we have to keep reminding our politicians, keep reminding our friends, our families, and even people who don't support the industry, because they're still calling it wacky weed, for crying out loud, So we're not gonna get rid of it overnight. Yes, it's frustrating, but you have to have patience. That's almost like, I lost a lot of weight, right? But I didn't gain it in one night. I didn't lose it in one night. I had to be patient, so you have to be patient. Yeah.
All right, so I have a question about pretty much entrepreneurship, and my question really pertains to, you're talking about fixing yourself, and you're talking about women and how they're having these issues, and I want to know if you guys have noticed the difference between how men perceive risk in business and how women perceive risk in business, because I think that's a huge gap, because I work with a lot of men CEOs, and the risks that they take and the risks that we talk about here are two different things. And I don't know if you guys have seen it in terms of, with your book, if you've seen it in terms of working with men and women and what we could do to get to that point. Because I think Ms. Kindness had talked about how do we do those things that they're doing, right? And I think it has a lot to do with the amount of risk.
Well, one thing I was interested, just to go on with what Monica was saying, is I read this article about men make decisions based on 60% of the information, whereas women make decisions based on more than 80% of the information. So when you're talking about risk, there it is. Do we need more information? Do we just, want to get everything before we make those risks, Khadijah? Or we see men can pull the trigger quicker because innately they've been socialized to pull triggers quicker.
And they have. They really have been socialized to pull the trigger quickly. But again, it still falls on re-educating and education. And I have to say, over the past 10 years, women have come up in the VC world. The VC world for women is humongous, especially here in California. I mean, you guys have Miss Hamilton here. And so, she's doing some great things, but at the same time, we have to look at our own individual risk tolerance. I think women are now investing more because we're living longer, we're having babies later, and now we're looking at, okay, now what is our financial plan? Now more than ever, we're looking at that. And even though men can just go right into it, it's because that's what they do. They're not emotional. We're emotional. How many of y'all know we're emotional? We're like emotional. We could be one way 1 minute, and the next minute, the next minute, we would like you and hate you at the same time and still ask you for money. So, am I right? I'm serious. And so with that being said, as we go on, we're getting more and more information, we're learning more, and we're investing more. So it's just gonna be a time situation, I think.
Okay, this is gonna be our last comment.
I just wanna make one comment about that risk thing. One of the things that I've seen with the male CEOs that I work with frequently is that they're not as averse to risk because they have multiple diversified portfolios. So they have their fingers in so many different pies. And that's one of the reasons too, when you're starting your business, if you outsource and you really bring people in that are doing things a different way, you can see what they're doing, and then there's an M&A thing that can happen later on down the line if you're funded for it. So you may see what they're doing, really like it, and then just suck them in and make them part of your team, buy them out. And those are opportunities that you can have along the way if you're willing to kind of open up to that. So diversify, and then if you lose over here and you win over here, then it all pans out for you.
Thank you, ladies.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely, absolutely.